It's a Friday. Our good friend CJ Nitkowski is here. And CJ, you got to see our Toronto Blue Jays with your own eyes as they were in Atlanta. They managed to win the last game of the series. So now, having seen them for 3 games, your initial take.
I think probably a lot of what was anticipated, right? Once you get to see a team play kind of, a little bit more consistently, you do get a better feel. But there really weren't a lot of surprises. There were some good things definitely that were going on. I think the bullpen is in a pretty good place right now, and the way things have been reshuffled. I thought the bullpen looked really good for the most part in this series. That was encouraging, even though some of the swing and miss down, at least big picture, is not exactly where you want it to be as far as racking up the strikeouts. The guys that you count on the end are doing a really nice job. I thought John Schneider yesterday in particular ran his bullpen pretty well, which was a tough day, right? You're using an opener. You're using a guy making his big league debut in Chad Dallas, who did a great job. I thought that was really encouraging. And then the way he ran it to finish things out. That's a good hitting team, one of the better hitting teams in all of baseball in the Braves. And I thought they handled that really well. I know it's a long season. We have to be very careful because I think as fans, we all do this, and I consider myself to be in that same spot. Is that I would like to see that team playing with a little bit more sense of urgency, right? As you're falling behind, and again, I'm always careful. I got to remember what it was like to have the uniform on, what a 6-month season is like, plus your 6 or so weeks of spring training, and then coming off a year where they played extremely late into the offseason, coming off of that World Series. But I think there's a little bit more room for some of that intensity without sounding like it's a football game every single day. It's not, but there were some times there where I thought the effort level could have been picked up, which wasn't a great look. And it's a tough spot to be in as a manager, especially when you have guys that have been around for a little while, because you're not just going to air guys out. You're not going to yell at them. You're not going to flip a table, when the game is over in the food room. That kind of stuff really doesn't exist anymore. But trying to find that balance of holding guys accountable, I think there's some room for that in what I saw. And even in last night's ball game, we were talking about it beforehand. The one thing that you'll always hear from the Cleveland Guardians is that there is no excuses to be had when your best player plays as hard as Jose Ramirez does every single night. Right? I mean, just the way that he carries himself, everybody else has to meet that standard. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the face of this franchise. He's the best player there. And there was a couple of times in last night's ball game where there was room for improvement on the effort level. The ball that he hit off the wall, he did not bust it out of the box. That play ended up being a little bit closer at second base than it probably should have been. The ground ball that was hit to Mauricio Dubon that was bobbled, he was jogging on contact because he was just assuming it was going to be an easy 6-4-3 double play. And then all of a sudden he had to hustle to pick it up, and he was still out, and he probably would have been out anyway. But he could have made that a lot closer. You just never know what's going to happen. The one thing about when you bobble a ball like that with Mauricio Dubon is that if you're not careful, a little bit of panic will start to set in. And then all of a sudden now, if you see a guy busting it, maybe you rush that throw and you don't pick it up as cleanly. But he had more time because Vladdy wasn't really getting after it. So from your biggest player, your most important player, and watching him for 3 days, I'd like to see a little bit more sense of urgency and playing to a level that everybody else can follow. You would not want everybody else to follow the level of intensity in which he was playing. So that was definitely something that stuck out as well. Lucas's at-bats against Chris Sale were really impressive. Right, that's left on left, and what he did in getting on base all 3 times with a walk, a hit by pitch, and then eventually a base hit also stuck out. I think that's encouraging news when we talk about matchups and how the Jays are going to play things. But those were the couple things that kind of stuck out watching them for 3 days.
It was frustrating for Jays fans in the fact that in the 9th inning on Thursday night, the bats came alive, and Kyle and producer Tim and I, we always text about the games. And here's what it kind of felt like to Jays fans, and I give all credit to when credit is due. Producer Tim said, the game is in a rain delay. This is a replay from a game last season. And I'm like, that's what it feels like.
That looks familiar. Hey, give him some credit, though. I mean, listen, what they did, Chris Sale yesterday, velocity was up a couple miles an hour. You don't see that from a guy that's 37 years old, where we saw a lot of 98s and 99s yesterday. Slider velocity was up too for him early on, like in the low 80s. He's got one of the slowest sliders, but one of the nastiest ones in baseball. They did a good job putting pressure on him. They did a good job for the most part, not chasing. Akamoto had a pretty ugly at bat his first time where he chased some pretty bad pitches. But other than that, I thought they did a really nice job of fouling off tough pitches, not swinging at ones that were borderline, putting the ball in play, some balls that ultimately ended up falling in. Chris Sale has been having a Cy Young caliber type of season. The Jays showed up against him. So at least from that standpoint, I thought the bats were pretty well focused. The plate appearances were really good. It was impressive because Chris Sale had his good stuff yesterday.
What was very telling and maybe a sign of things to come. So the Jays had a slim 3-2 lead, and then they built it to a 7-2 lead in the ninth. And you're like, okay, who's Schneider going to put out? And he put Varlin out in that situation, not a save situation. So I think that was an indicator of we aren't messing around the rest of the way.
Even with him going in to finish off the eighth inning, kind of signified that to me. I was like, oh, I was a little bit surprised by that because the way things were lining up, I thought maybe he would have kept it clean. But I think he sensed an opportunity after the home run from Mauricio Dubon to say, I can't, we've got to go with my best. We need this win, right? It was been a 4-game losing streak, I think it was, going into that one. And it's a mini losing streak, but we've seen a little streakiness here lately from the Blue Jays, who are now 9-6 over their last 15. And said, we got to have this win. We're playing from behind right now, right? Technically tied for third place and 8 games back in that division. They can't afford to give ones away. So when it was a 1-run game at that point, having him ready, that is your best bullpen weapon by far. He's been incredible to finish things out. And then the only thing I was wondering, quite honestly, was on the breathing room that you got in the ninth inning. Would you then change your mind? And the reason I think he didn't do it is because if for some reason things went sideways, you've kind of gone through most of your guys right at that point. And so, nope, pedal to the metal. Yes, we have a really nice lead. The offense did a good job in the ninth inning to get to Ronaldo Lopez. That does not mean that we take our guy out. We have got to have this one. We can't afford to make the mistake. And so Varlin ends up going in a third.
The Blue Jays have a new player, a new old player, as they acquired Simeon Woods Richardson from the Twins. Now, he was originally in the Jays system when they got him from the Yankees in the Marcus Stroman deal, and then they lost him to the Twins when they got Jose Barrios. So now he is back. One problem, he has not had a good start to the season.
He hasn't. The thing that sticks out, the 0-7 record, the really high ERA, but then you start digging in because it looked like he was trending in the right direction last year for the Minnesota Twins, and maybe could become a guy that you could count on in that starting rotation. I think if you look closer, though, you're going to notice the strikeout rate is down considerably. The swing and miss on both his slider and his split, those should be your 2 best swing and miss pitches for any pitcher. If you have both of those in the repertoire, more often than not, those are going to be your biggest swing and miss. That is down on both of those pitches by a pretty wide margin from a year ago. So they haven't been right for him. And then what righties have done against him. He dominated righties last year, did a really nice job. And again, that's why it felt like he was headed in this direction and becoming a little bit more of a reliable starter in a rotation. And none of it has gone right for him. So you look at that and you say, okay, last year was good. Here's a couple of pitches that aren't right. You can use a little help in the short term. This is a guy who's been with us before. So maybe there's some familiarity that you can dig into. But clearly it felt like he needed to go somewhere else and get a fresh new start. And we'll see whether or not the Jays have picked out something that they saw in their work to say, hey, this guy can help us. And here's the changes we're going to make. I don't think it's as simple as, we got to get into a new environment. Perhaps there's something with his stuff in particular. We see it often. How do you use it? What percentages? Do we need to pitch a little bit more backwards? Do we need to eliminate a pitch or bring the usage way down and another one up? I'm assuming they'll have some kind of game plan. And again, we'll see if they can recapture some of what he was doing a year ago.
And who knows how much we're going to see of him because replacements are on the way. Dylan Cease made a rehab start. Alejandro Kirk homered in a rehab start. I don't know where Addison Barger. He has been lost in a time portal somewhere. But the great thing about the Jays run is it started a lot of new voices covering the Jays, picking up stuff that we might miss. And I saw this one today, CJ. You're going to love this. Davis Schneider, in 9 games since going to AAA, he has 39 plate appearances, 18 walks. So 46% walk rate. And I believe he only has 3 hits. But have you ever seen a walk rate? Ooh, so if they want a walk guy, Davis Schneider, he's ready.
Yeah, it's the Barry Bonds of the minor leagues apparently right now. So yeah, that's where you can go. So I guess the good news is he's not pressing, right? And you maybe have some, and the minor leagues have gotten younger and younger, even AAA. And so he's a guy that certainly has done some things in the big leagues. And so they're sitting here trying to maybe get him to chase and pitching around him, and he's not at least chasing. Right. The one thing you don't want to do, you go to the minor leagues, is start to create bad habits, right? You're trying to get back to the big leagues, stick with your game plan. Clearly he has done that, where he has remained patient. That is an incredible number. That's probably not going to hold when you think about the league average walk rate is usually just under 10%. It's a little high this year because of ABS. When it's right, it's more like a high 8%, 8.7, somewhere in there. So the fact that he's in the 40s seems unsustainable. You wish there were a few more hits. At the same time, he's obviously not gotten a lot of pitches to work with either. It seems to have been the approach, because even though it should always be about development in the minor leagues, you're still trying to win to some degree, and clearly they're not going to let David Schneider beat them.
CJ, I love that you got the Miles Straw experience, or as he's known here in Canada, Kilometers Straw. I get that from my friend Cal.
That's a good one. I hadn't heard that one yet. Well done.
Oh, I hadn't heard it either. I'm like, that's brilliant. I'm using it.
Yeah.
Miles Straw is a guy. That's a guy you mentioned. Don't emulate what Vladdy's doing right now. Do what Miles is doing.
Yeah. Covers great ground. We've always known him to be a great defender. And then picking his spots. It was that at bat, if I'm not mistaken, the last one they had against Chris Sale, where he ended up getting a base hit, hit the ball hard. And I was pretty surprised by it. I can't remember if he was a line out or if it was a hit, but either way, I remember watching the at bat in particular. I was like, this guy's got no chance against Chris Sale, because he had taken some uglier swings earlier in the game, but really made some nice adjustments. Yeah, he's a surprisingly difficult guy at times as far as opponents go and trying to get him out. He's going to run, work hard to try to put the ball in play, put some pressure on opposing defenses, and he does a great job in the outfield. It's a little discouraging as a Braves guy. I'm sitting here watching this, and you get kind of your hopes up a little bit, and you feel like a ball's got a chance in the gap. And then you see him go full sprint, and then as soon as you start to see him drop it back to fourth or third gear, it's discouraging before he's ever put the ball in his glove. So he's a good one. He's a good one for that.
Give us the mindset of the Blue Jays. They went in. I text you before the start of the Braves series. I said, this could get ugly. It wasn't ugly. The Jays held their own. Not that they have to prove themselves against a team, but this was the number one team in baseball. They escaped with a win in the last game. So I think that's good for the mentality of the team, considering the inconsistency they had, where they can say, hey, we can run with the big dogs.
Yeah, and they should know that, but you're right. When things aren't going well, confidence can get down. They lost that first game 4-3, right? I only lost it by 1, so they're right there in it. And then, of course, what they did yesterday to one of the game's best in Chris Sale should be a confidence booster. Again, though, I do think there's a little bit more there. You don't want to be super stressed out, but I think a little bit more sense of urgency. So if there was any lack of confidence, sure, you pick up a little bit, even though you did lose this series. But I think more importantly, it was the consistency, and the hitting coach is probably pretty happy with what happened yesterday that they put together with the plate appearances against Chris Sale, right? That was a big one. And even Didier Fuentes, and then eventually getting to Lopez at the very end. That should be the thing, because that's what it's about right now, right? Pitching has been good. Bullpen's been good. Rotation overall. Again, I'm looking at the last 15. Those numbers have been really good. It's still the lack of power, and the offense has been better, but it is still the lack of power. Right? Looking at Vladdy over that time, wow, you're like, man, the OPS is well over 900 in the last 15 team games, but he's got no home runs and 3 RBIs. Your $500 million player cannot afford to be that guy. And I know we've talked about it a lot, but he's got to get the ball in the air more. I'd like to see him play just a little bit harder and get after it. At a time when you're behind. So that'll be the big one, is trying to get this offense more consistent with more pop.
Was Chris Sale in the majors when you were in the majors? He's been around a while.
Nope. So it was 2010, I believe, was his rookie year. I was in Asia at the time, then playing winter ball, and no. So I was playing professionally, but did not make it back to the big leagues. I was just this old crusty guy hanging out in the Dominican. It was fun. Fun place to hang out.
That sounds like a great time.
Depends on what city you're in. So I was in 2 different cities. The first one, San Francisco de Macorís, not the greatest place. So you got to be there, head on a swivel over there. The guy that drove the quote unquote gringo van back and forth to the ballpark to the hotel had a pistol in between his legs and a bottle of rum right in the cup holder. So that was an experience for sure. Once I went and played for another team for the Toros, I got to stay at Casa de Campo, and I did feel like I was on vacation. That was beautiful.
In the Dominican, was it like the KHL, the Russian Hockey League? Did you get paid in cash?
That's a great, no, not at that point. No, it was direct deposit.
Okay.
So no, there was not cash. It wasn't quite that shady. No.
The KHL was notorious. You had to go into a room in the arena on payday, and they give you a brown paper bag with your pay. And
Yes.
there's no chance you count it there. Whatever's in there, you're taking it, and you aren't saying a thing.
Yeah, I like that. I'm sure somebody was probably, if not everybody, smoking a cigarette in the process as well. It sounds like something out of a movie. We would get some cash payments in Japan. which were kind of fun. They had this thing called fight money. And so after a series win is how we used to do it. The manager, they would kind of lay things out. And whoever contributed and did things, right? You hit a home run, might be a couple of $100. Same thing, you get a win, big strikeout, save, whatever it was. There was a kind of a system that they had in place, and you would just get an envelope full of yen. It was pretty awesome. Just walk away with some cash, and nobody ever had to know about it.
Last thing, CJ, Aaron Judge of 4 to 6 weeks. I know one player does not a team make, but every team in the AL East has to see this is our opportunity.
It is, because if you remember a couple of years ago when they did not have him in the lineup, it was disastrous for them. Because he is the guy that, he's the David Schneider of the big leagues. You're going to avoid him. You're going to pitch around him. You can't let him beat you, right? And they went south when he wasn't available there for a while offensively. So a little bit more pressure now on Cody Bellinger. Ben Rice has been really good for them, but he's been really good hitting in front of Aaron Judge. So now the treatment that he gets will be kind of intriguing going forward. And for a team that has a lot of left-handed hitters, you lose your big righty. That's the other part of it. You're going to be a little bit more exposed now to left-handed pitching, how Aaron Boone sets that lineup, depending on what the other team's bullpen looks like, right? How many lefties do you have in your bullpen? Even if it's a right-handed starter and you stack those lefties throughout the middle and near the top, or even at the top with Trent Grisham, what happens when you get later in the game? And so some of these teams that carry 2 or 3 or even 4 lefties that I've seen around the game, that could become problematic as well. So there's no getting around it. This is a problem for the Yankees. It was a weird kind of injury situation, right, where he's talking about his shoulder was bothering him, but they noticed a bruise on his rib. And now the thoracic outlet syndrome stuff that has been thrown out there as kind of being part of this is unfortunate for the Yankees. But like you said, for everybody else right now in the American League East, there is opportunity. Yes, their pitching is in a great place. Having Carlos Rodon, having Garrett Cole. I know Cam Schlittler didn't have a great one, but he's still really good. Max, so this is a really deep rotation when healthy. They'll lean on that pitching a little bit more. That run production is likely going to come down. This is a big loss for the Yankees.
You mentioned Ben Rice. I'm convinced he is Benjamin Button because every time I see him, I'm like, that is he going to look like he's 7 next time I see him?
Yeah. They all look young, man, these days. It's brutal watching this stuff. My favorite was when I think Max must have been with the Braves at the time, where Max Fried was facing Ben Rice. And so if you only looked up on the score bug, it said fried rice. That's where everybody wants to be.
Love it. Have a great weekend, buddy.
All right. See you, pal.